Hello ladies and gentlemen. In this video, we're going to talk about everything that happened in the 2024 year of esports for Trackmania, especially as it round ended. Congratulations to Carl Jr. for winning his 6th title. I was at the event, but I did not have a managed to congratulate him. I saw him there, but I only had to book for my plane, but you know, stuff like that happens. But yeah, in this video, we're going to talk about everything that happened with this year, how it started, how it ended, what happened in the middle, and what could potentially lead for next year for competitive Trackmania. For context, I had been working on the Trackmania World Cup project. I was started with it from 2022 at the very end of the World Cup of 2022. And I was basically reached out by Ubisoft Nadeo to assist with the World Tour project, because I had been doing a lot of community events for a lot of regional seats, helping them how to develop their own local communities, doing a bunch of events, experimenting a bunch of stuff. And I was like, I like to just host events in the first place. And I had been doing a lot of them till 2022. So I was reached out by Ubisoft Nadeo to assist with the World Tour project. And I will say this, 2023 was one of the most enjoyable times I have had while working on something. There were a lot of issues and things like that here and there, but I really enjoyed the structure because this was the year where I felt like the Trackmania felt like actual esports, and I really enjoyed my time working on the project, different people, different assets, and especially because the main person of esports kind of left at the time. So around like stage 1, which is like first Q2 of the year, I was kind of given most of the tasks to do. So I basically had a chance to run the esports circuit for 2023 basically, and had to do a lot of education for third parties, how to do stuff better and how to integrate some Trackmania stuff right there. So for example, most of the World Championship or 2023 was some stuff that I was also helping run stuff and set up so we get a banger event, which it was. But at the end of this event, there were massive changes. So for example, if we go right here, before the announcement of the finals, it was announced that Ubisoft Nadeo, who is the creator studio, will no longer be producing Trackmania World Tour in 2024. A lot of people thought that, okay, they're basically stopped doing esports, and it's kind of, unfortunate because, well, 2023 was a really nice year. It had some flaws here and there, but like the core was really nice. Basically what that led is they don't want to do it anymore. A lot of people thought this is end of esports, but in reality, what it did hint is that they're just going to be the main operators of it. Because during this period, I was contracted by Nadeo and was working with them for them. And afterwards, everyone was kind of just left hanging. What's going to happen? And then, out of nowhere, there was the announcement that the new 2024 competitive season is officially kicking off. And it's co-organized by tournaments, and the Trackmania World Tour 2024 allows players to compete in community tournaments to earn points and qualify to World Cup. In paper, basically, there were a bunch of events throughout the year that were happening, either some LAN, some online, and it basically rewarded points for like a world ranking, which then would kind of lead you to the World Cup, basically. And this was the thing is, the reaction was not the best, especially because most of the organizations were not communicated apparently, and due to that, a lot of the organizations dropped. A lot of players lost their contracts, and basically the amount of actual like semi-pro players dropped massively. There were only a couple of really like I would say loyal organizations still stayed during this year, but a bunch of them dropped. And the reaction has been very all over the place, especially because it appeared out of nowhere, no hints, no anything. And remember, at the time, the very first event, which was a LAN, was happening on the same weekend when it happened. So it kind of threw everyone off, and no one was really prepared for this. But we can go through conceptually how it did work. So we had a bunch of events that were through tiers. There was Challenger, Grand, and Major tier. And each of them awarded a different amount of points, and all was given for the world ranking. And the idea of the world ranking was the top 32 players on paper would then be put in a World Tour playoff, and the top 4 from that World Tour playoff would be put in the World Cup. But the World Cup for 2024 had 8 slots, which is not much. One of them was given to Carmine Corp, which was the winner of last year. who won right here. But since there were 2 players here, it was basically given decision for Karmine Corp themselves, and they could decide any player. Well, they went for Otak, who was one of the players. It would have been a pretty funny situation if they had went for a player who was not in the lineup there. So I think that could be an absolute fiesta if that had happened. And basically there was the World Tour playoffs, and yeah, so. And there was additional 2 regional qualifiers, also technically 3 as well, which was one of the Americas and so-called rest of the world qualifier, which in my opinion was a pretty unfortunate name because no one would be called as the rest, which was essentially Asia, Oceania, Middle East and Africa qualifiers. They had 2 separate tournaments, which kind of went into a final event, which is at least my doing, because originally they just wanted to do a 1 event, which is just single limb, and yeah, good luck with time zones. So at least I had to readjust some things there. But yeah, essentially I got brought on and reached out for this year-end circuits. And I was shocked when I first saw this format myself, because I really was thinking that 2v2 was doable, especially because yes, it would be understandable. A lot of esports in many games are cutting down their budgets like massively, but it was still possible to do 2v2 and continue it in like a diet form. But I knew that was doable in terms of operational point of view, like it was feasible. But when I saw that the project will be going back to solos and that there was like no proper consistency because it's a bit all over the place, on paper it sounded nice. A lot of community events giving points, but one of the things was that the homologation rules. And while I had a chance to look at the rulebook, but like really just shortly before the event started, there was not much room to readjust things, and due to that, basically the only events that could be part of the circuit, if they use either single elimination, double elimination, had to do 1v1v1v1s only, and it has to use cup mode. And in my opinion, cup mode is a really outdated game mode, especially because there exists way more better competitive game modes nowadays, not counting the World Tour 2v2 game mode, but even for solos, there are way better combinations of game modes how we can use to determine competitive play. One of the best examples is I would say the Rise, but more commonly the so-called reverse cup mode is being more and more utilized, which is essentially you start with like your points are like a health bar, and based on your positions you lose it, and then basically it ends off with the 4 players end off with the 1v1v1, then it ends off with 1v1, and basically the last player who is left is the one who wins the match, which is way less anticlimactic game modes than cup mode was, because this was a thing in this year's World Cup, where for example Carl won it, and then everyone else had to play for a second, and he was just sitting on the side, waiting for a chance to celebrate. So this is one of the things that was with the thing. So, but yeah, essentially there were relatively strict homologation rules, and due to that, not that many tournaments who were actually banging events did not even get a chance to be part of the circuits. Just because they use different game modes and things like that. And you may be wondering why that's the case. Well, apparently the company was reached out and they didn't have a chance to learn the game enough. They had some people who knew Trackmania, but from way in the past. So I tried to like learn and pick up the knowledge as much as possible, and they tried to, with their information they got, to make something consistent that could make sense. But the fact that no experienced people from Trackmania got brought up for creation of the format was one of the biggest problems for 2024, in my opinion. Well, I was brought in a bit later, most of the rule set, guidelines, everything was already set, and there was no chance to readjust things, or there were only potentials for some small tweaks, but outside of that, because for example, remember one of the tweaks was you had to have 100 points limit per match, but at least I said let's put the range at least, so it's not just 100 points, because a lot of top players said that 100 points is random, which it really can be based on the context, and especially if single elimination events, then it can be especially all over the place. But yeah, anyway, there were a bunch of the events, bunch online. As you see, there were a lot of tournaments actually. Most of them were actually officially ran. So in theory, Ubisoft Nadia said he will stop producing, but they still put up €1,000 prize pool for so-called monthly cups. which were single elimination tournaments. One of the most unfortunate things about these is that it had time attack. It had a bunch of people registering early on because a lot of people were interested in the circuits. And they basically played time attack, and most of them could not even be able to play because only top 64 advanced, and it went to single elimination. And fun fact, during majority of the year, this was the most watched event of the whole competitive year until the very World Cup, mainly because a lot of people were interested in the format, and afterwards it kind of fell off. I would say Comic-Con Baltics was the one that also was one of the best years of the events of the circuit, maybe in terms of production and everything. So at least still called it hype, but basically after CCB, everything started to like go downhill. Even the player numbers to a point where grand tier events was even downgraded to challenger just because it did not hold enough players. I believe it was like 16 or something, and you have like a 500 euro events, which let's say in TM2 era, you would have like, I don't know, 600, 500 people playing maybe even. Especially I remember Game War Duo Cups and stuff like that. But nowadays you put up 500 euro events, official one, and yeah, only 16 players were interested. One of the reasons for it, I saw it as that the so-called tier system that you see right here, like it didn't matter if it's a challenger tier event, major, grands, you still had the same players over and over and over and over again at the top most of the time. So in theory, when you have a lower tier event, it still was on the same difficulty. In my opinion, there were even some challenger tier events that were harder than certain major events. So that was the case with that. And yeah, it was a bit interesting in that sense. Which can cause a bunch of inconsistencies in the potential scoring on who gets points as well. Because, of course, if you only play, let's say, monthly cups, which were like the most, I would say, advertised events, because they were the officially Nadio ran events, they had the more players than the rest tournaments of the year. And, of course, they were only single nation, since most people only knew basically these events or have heard about them. And due to that, people who their good players only played these did not get enough points, and then they were pretty low in the ranking. Then afterwards we had everything went. We had the regional qualifiers, from which America's one Carl Jr. qualified. I do think one of the best places where I had a chance to readjust things was the so-called ROTW final. As mentioned originally, they wanted to just do one tournament for all of the titles, but for so-called MEA and APAC. But I proposed, due to the time zones, that we do split two events, and from which we actually had a pretty cool thing where we had top 4 for one thing, top 4 for another, and there's like a final event at the end, which I think was pretty fun. It was just the grand final was a bit unfortunate because everyone broke under pressure against Mada. Americas had also like their own events, and for Europe, there was a situation where at this announcement, since XP was, I would say, the biggest community event that exists in Trackmania, and it was just outside of the official regular season. I remember I got a bit of flack originally because people thought that I did it like intentionally when I had like no chance of doing it for setting the deadlines or whatever. And there was like a bit unfortunate coincidence due to that, but basically it was negotiated, so XPVO is included in some form of way. So basically XPVO essentially was like a last chance qualifier for the World Cup in the for European players, so with the highest European player could have a chance to placing in the World Cup, from which was PAC, but there were some really good players who did not make it in the end. So yeah, basically like that, there were a bunch of events, and then there was the World Tour playoffs. I think we gotta talk about this one. So, the ranking that we played the whole year, and what happened was that essentially the people who were top 32 in this ranking, right here, would play a bracket. And what happened is that more than half of people from the top 64, like top 64, declined the spots to play in the World Tour playoffs. One of the reasons was the maps were released only 10 days before the event starts, and the maps were really difficult, especially to pick them up early on. There was close to no reward because only 4 slots advance, and actually huge props for everyone actually who did approve, but like it's basically essentially made playing the whole year kind of pointless because there were literally some players who just showed up to one event, got enough points, they were ranked number 50 something, and were already in the World Tour playoffs under this year. Afi was a good example, who right like here, and he literally just played one event somewhere in May or something, and he didn't even win it. Same with Chemko as well. Chemko literally just played the regional qualifier. He was already in top 32, while other players, were trying to grinding themselves like crazy, like Tween, for example, or Paco or Banks. Auris as well had a lot of events. Yeah, he had 14 events played, and essentially it was kind of for nothing, because even people who were in number 64, I think we reached out to 64, and that was the limit to be reached out. And yeah, at least we had some decent matches in the World Tour playoffs, but it kind of made it very, very underwhelming. And then it was the time for the World Cup itself. So the World Cup itself had 8 players, as we mentioned. So there, the Otak was the Karmine Corp pick. Mada was the Asia Oceania MEA qualifier winner. Carl Jr. came from the Americas qualifiers. Pac from the XP Evo, or the European one. And Masa Banks, Paco, and Epos came from the World Tour playoffs. And basically the World Cup has been the shortest World Cup there was. As you see, this is not like the very, very finals. No. This is the whole event. There were only 3 matches, and it was single elimination. And there were a lot of things brought up by some players that there was not enough warm-up time, there was not enough time to prep, which I can see to be the case. I would say the production, everything that was done by Webedia was really, really nice. But the core logistics of the matches, like, I tried to negotiate so many things, but they said we only have the slots, we have to use most of it. Originally it was supposed to be 2 hours, but I said doing even like 3 matches in 2 hours is like close to impossible, especially in LAN environments. So at least we got that extended to 3. Yay. But yeah, due to that, it was single elimination. And yeah, there was also a thing with the way how the semifinals were decided. Originally, they just wanted to do full random. I did propose to have like player picks, but there were some changes from the higher ups that they changed the way who picks what. Because I proposed to have the rotor points be consideration. So basically the whole year, how you grinded gets recognized at the very, very final. But only got recognized for the pick order of the maps instead. And due to that, there was a decision done that Otak is one of the pickers, and the winner of rotor playoffs at least is the second one, which was Masa. But the pick ban order was 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, which on paper would by default put one semifinal way more advantages. And yeah, it was kind of like this. And then afterwards, at least the matches were kind of okay. A bit unfortunate we did not saw the peak level what players can generally do on the maps, because a lot of them really, really, really prepared. Come on, it's the World Cup. But yeah, players had a relatively rush time. There was even a delay when we were like waiting outside to be picked up. And it was starting to eat the potential warm-up time, setup time already, because it was quite delayed. And it was like 1 hour before the matches even have to start. And of course, it's understandable because, for example, Webedia, who was actually really nice to work with. But I think the big problem was that they were running many events at a time, so the Trackmania event did not have enough focus. So, for example, when I tried to reach out, negotiate stuff, it kind of, let's say I said something and the information got lost, and still the mistake was done, which I did point out that will this happen, and or things that not to do, and yeah, I'm a bit disappointed with that regard. But outside of that, the production, everything, some stuff that did get picked up there, and at least the presentation of the matches was alright, considering the financial situation and everything around this. But yeah, after that, we basically had the 2 semifinals, and Carl Jr. won it in the end. A bunch of the players were very, very disappointed, especially Masa was pointing out the situation regarding the warm-up, the practice and everything, because he was really feeling good on a map pack. But everyone had the circumstances, which was very, very unfortunate. Usually in Trackmania, I would say like 40 minutes as minimum is enough to get in the groove of things. But 1 hour or even multiple days, like we had in, for example, in the 2023 season, we had like a separate whole place where the players could warm up, and then they just came down to the studio to do the matches. And if they want to do, some people even continued training for next day when they had the matches. But yeah, it's 1-day event, and I really hope this is also noted from the player for next year. And speaking of next year, there has been a lot of push from a lot of the players that people want to have 2v2 back. What will happen? I have no idea. Behind the scenes, I have been trying to push stuff, educate stuff, because one of the coolest things is that, which kind of does give me hope for next year, is that a lot of the staff who are not really into Trackmania are willing to learn stuff, pick up things. It's just the big problem with this year is that since it was a lot of things were very quickly done. A lot of the decisions they had, let's say, like many months ago, were kind of locked. They locked the scope that they can work with, and due to that, a lot of improvements could not be changed, adjusted, and stuff like this. So they kind of have to bite teeth through the entirety of the game and realizing, okay, we had a mistake here, okay, we messed up here, we had this incident here. And since a lot of people are willing to learn, willing to pick up stuff, I'm kind of actually hopeful for next year. I really want to see 2v2 because I really like 2v2 myself, and it brought so many things to the ecosystem for competitive. There's so many new narratives, the team transfers, who goes where, or like all these discussions. It's really so much more interesting. But we'll still have to see, because the final call or the green light has to go through Nadio, and we'll see what happens with that. I have been trying to push so many things and educate them, so help them out, learn, so we get the banging next year. But I'm not the person who does the final decisions. I'm just like a consultant, basically. So we'll see what happens at the end. Because I can see stuff that can work with competitive Trackmania, but we'll have to see how things actually work in practice. But yeah. Anyway, let's go as a bit of a yapping discussion video. Hope you gave some interesting insights as well. I'm very hopeful for next year personally. I really hope that we have I do think if there is a competitive season next year, it will be better. But how much better? Because I can see a situation where potentially we have like 2v2 and it's just homologate events, but with 2v2. Since people wanted 2v2 and it's just individual events. I can see that world. I can see a world where we maybe have like a league or something back as well. So it's like the range of potential movement is all over the place. And there is this uncertainty right now with making this video as well. But who knows? I will try to help out as much as I can. And but the main thing is, like, it doesn't matter what are the leaks, rumors. The best thing is to wait for the official confirmations instead. Like, a lot of people have been like saying, oh, next year is going to be 2v2 like 6 months ago. But I do really have enjoyed the push from Big with Evolving Duo Dash. Carl Jr., a lot of players saying they want 2v2 back. Even Carl Jr., after winning World Cup, okay, it's going to be a bit hard to find. Basically, he was interviewed right here. And he said that he wants 2v2 back in his winning speech of the World Cup. And also the fact that Carl is a 6-time world champion is absolutely ridiculous. But the fact that he said that he wants to have 2v2 back so he can share the emotions from winning or losing with someone else is way better experience than winning alone. So I really hope this kind of stuff also hopefully, sets up a bit for next year as well. But yeah. I usually like to yap. If you want to join in for more yapping stuff, I sometimes stream on Twitch, SRK_5_. Probably the link will be in the description. We usually discuss about it. Lately, I have been doing a lot of events, especially 2v2 events for fun. So you can just sign up, join the stream, sign up and play. And yeah. Anyway, hope you all have a really nice rest of the day. Thank you all for watching and see you all later. Bye-bye.